Yo, what's up? Welcome to episode 4 of the Throwback Hoops podcast. My name is Rob Clayton, and joining me as always is my co-host, Woody V. How are you, man?
Good, Robbie. How are you, man? Another week done, so yeah, looking forward to the weekend.
That's it, mate. Another week done, and how good has it been to have the NBA back this week?
Oh, brilliant, man. You know, I bet you sitting at home and having your fantasy lineups in front of you and stuff has been nice, and watching the games, right?
Definitely. And how good was it watching our boys today, mate?
Yeah, amazing. Great to start the season off well, right?
We'll probably touch a little bit more on that on the show, but yeah, good for the Hawks to sort of come out with that first win. So, all right. So, look, as I said, welcome everyone to the show again this week. Thanks for everyone for joining us. We had some great sort of feedback and a lot of sort of views and likes and everything last week. So, I really appreciate that. Just very briefly, just to remind everyone where you can find us. Obviously, there's a YouTube channel, or of course, you can download the podcast on basically anywhere where podcasts are found. So, look, we'll speak a little bit more about that at the end, and you'll also see the links on the screen if you're watching the video on YouTube. But look, we might just get into it sort of straight away, like we like to do, Woods, and maybe show off our jerseys. So, who have you got for us this week, man?
Yeah, so I've got a classic jersey here, Rob.
I do like that one.
Chairman of the board, special edition.
I like it. Very nice. An absolute legend of the Adelaide 36ers, right?
Yes, I got a Mark Davis jersey for those who can't see. One of the greatest ever Adelaide 36ers. And you don't get the nickname, the chairman of the boards, for nothing, Rob.
That's right.
So look, just a little bit about Mark Davis. He represented the 36ers between 1985 and 2001. And, you know, he was doing what Dennis Rodman was doing in the NBA, in the NBL, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, 3-time NBL champion, NBL Grand Final MVP, 8-time All-Star in the NBL, and he's a 4-time rebounding champion. You know, he just had a knack for knowing where the ball was going to go and grabbing those rebounds. His number 33 jersey is actually retired by Adelaide.
Yeah, I can picture him grabbing an offensive board, Woods, and just ramming it home. He was so good on the boards, wasn't he?
He sure was. And, you know, he's a proud Australian now. In 1996, he naturalized and actually represented the Boomers. And, you know, just over 16 years ago, I averaged 10 boards a game. You know, that's just amazing, right? And look, he's been in Australia for 40 years now. He calls Adelaide home, and he still runs the Mark Davis basketball camp and, you know, gives back to grassroots basketball in the region. And he's honored in 2006 by the Australian Basketball Hall of Fame, and he was inducted there. So, yeah, this jersey says it all, you know.
It does. It's quite a unique one as well with the chairman of the boards on the front. I like that one, mate. Definitely nice.
Thanks.
One. All right, so look, I guess for my jerseys, look, you can see I've got the usual one hanging up. So a pretty pretty rare and old school NBL one I've got hanging up there. So it's a mid-90s Melvin Thomas Illawarra Hawks jersey. So for those that were sort of following the league back then, Melvin Thomas was a power forward like Mark Davis was. He had a 15-year career in the NBL. So that was basically his first stint where that jersey's from. He actually... I think he went to Sydney for a couple of seasons and maybe had a season with the Cannons before he went back. Interestingly enough, when he came back, the number 32 had actually been taken by club legend Matt Campbell. So Melvin Thomas was given the number 33 jersey, and actually the 32 and the 33 are both retired in the Illawarra rafters there. So this is obviously quite a rare one, given it's his initial jersey. And yeah, probably a lot of people would think it's a Matt Campbell one. No, it's definitely a Melvin Thomas jersey. So look, that's the one I've got hanging up. Look, in terms of the one I'm wearing, I wanted to sort of give an old school NBA one this week. I'll stand up and show the jersey first. Probably the number might sort of say it all when you see the guy's number, but I'll just show you that jersey first, and I'll tell you a little bit about him.
So for those who can't see and are listening to the podcast, Robbie's got a number 77 Washington Wizards Gheorghe Mureșan jersey.
Big George. Yeah,
great jersey.
It is a nice one. Look, I think, obviously Gheorghe Mureșan had a really big cult following in the 90s, didn't he? He actually wasn't in the league for that long. He was only sort of played, I think, around 7 seasons. He was with Washington for all but one of those seasons. So he actually started off with the Bullets, and then they became the Wizards, which is what this jersey is. So for those that don't know anything about Big George, he's the equal tallest player to ever play in the NBA, alongside Manute Bol. I think it's pretty cool. He was 7'7", and he rocked the 77 jersey number, which was pretty nice. So look, in terms of Gheorghe, look, as I said, he did have a short career. He was the first ever Romanian player to play in the NBA, and I think he might only be the first Romanian-born player. There's a few with heritage that have played there. Look, I think probably the best season for Big Gheorghe there was the 1996 season. He averaged, and this might even surprise you, Woods, the 96 season, he averaged 15 points, 10 rebounds, 2.5 blocks, and he led the league in field goal percentage. So, I mean, that's pretty good, right? That wouldn't have been far
Absolutely.
off. That wouldn't have been far off an All-Star berth, would it? 14 and 10 with those sort of numbers. So, yeah, he also won a Most Improved award as well. He won the field goal award a couple of times as well, because obviously most of his shots were right under the ring. But yeah, basically Gheorghe Mureșan, he was quite sort of successful away from the court as well. He was in a movie with Billy Crystal called My Giant, which
I remember.
A few of you may have seen. Probably wasn't the greatest movie ever. He was in an Eminem video clip in the My Name Is song as a ventriloquist, which was quite funny. And look, he's still sort of active in the Washington community and still sort of involved with the Wizards team. His youngest son is actually, I believe, a freshman with the Georgetown Hoyas in the NCAA this year. Only sort of looked like he's playing a bit part. And also, George's oldest son also played for Georgetown as well. So, yeah, a bit of a blast from the past, but yeah, rocking the champion Gheorghe Mureșan jersey this week.
Well, two great jerseys, Rob. And just actually looking at that one behind you, the Melvin Thomas jersey, Mark Davis and Melvin Thomas would have had some good battles over the years, correct?
They absolutely would have, yeah. They sort of, would have matched up a few times, and two sort of pretty strong guys there going for the boards there. So that would have been pretty interesting sort of seeing those two battle. And look, as you said, Mark Davis naturalised, so did Melvin Thomas. So they both sort of, obviously stayed here and sort of, become citizens here, which is great as well. So, all right, well, look, that's sort of the jerseys for this week. I guess before we sort of just get really started today, just to let you know with the episode today, there's going to be a little bit more NBA content. Look, we thought it was only fitting with the season starting a couple of days ago. Obviously, we know the NBL is still around 5 or 6 weeks away. So probably for this week and sort of ongoing for a little bit, we will definitely be stepping up the NBA content. So we hope you guys sort of enjoy that. So, look, I guess we'll go straight into it now. We're just going to sort of start off with the Australians in the NBA now. We've got a sort of couple of interesting sort of topics to talk about there. I mean, literally one day after we recorded the podcast last week, we had the bad news out of Houston that Dante got waived.
Terrible.
So It's bad news, isn't it, Woods? So maybe we'll sort of touch on that. I guess sort of, I mean, look, Woods, give me your thoughts on obviously sort of the news that obviously came a day before the season started, and what you sort of think Dante's prospects may be now in terms of getting another role.
Look, a few people have come out on Twitter and whatnot and said that he still has a chance in the NBA this season. But I think it's a really long shot. I mean, the guy got cut by arguably the worst team in the league.
Yeah.
Something must have happened at training camp where Houston just thought, look, we don't want to persist with him. And yeah, it's unfortunate. But, if he wants to do that, he probably want to stay around in the USA and get a G League opportunity. But, I mean, what do you think? What do you think his future holds?
Yeah.
What's the best for him going forward?
Personally, I think this probably might be his last NBA chance now. So, look, if he may sort of try and sort of, lock onto a G League team and see if there's one more sort of chance there. I know we discussed sort of a couple of days ago, Woods, we think someone like Dante would be a lot better suited with a better sort of team. Somewhere where he can sort of, provide some veteran leadership and sort of play in a reserve role. I don't know if the fit with Houston would have been that good, to be honest. I mean, you got Kevin Porter running down and throwing a turnover on every possession. It would have been pretty interesting. And obviously they're not massively motivated to win this season either. So, look, it was a bit of a shame though, wasn't it? Sort of coming so close to the season and probably meaning that, there wasn't really any other opportunities for another team to pick him up. But
that's true.
Look, things like injuries happen. If he does decide to sort of hang around there may be a chance that he can sort of, link on and maybe get a 10-day contract. There's also been quite a bit of talk about a possible NBL return, Woods. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, look, he's a part owner of the Southeast Melbourne Phoenix. It's his hometown. It would be good. It would be a nice story for him to come back here. He's 26. He's got, a decade of basketball left in him, provided he stays healthy. I think it would be a good match. I know that they're kind of looking for a big man to close out their roster, but if you can get your hands on a guy like Dante Exum, you'll rejig the lineup a little bit and do what you can to make it work, right?
That's right. Yeah, I mean, look, it would be a shame. As you said, at age 26, he's still got a lot ahead of him, and it feels like he's finally sort of healthy now. So I guess, look, probably fingers crossed. I know we did speak about Dante in the first episode, and fingers crossed he can sort of, continue to stay healthy and maybe sort of crack on it and get another sort of chance over in the NBA.
I also think that his game and his style of game would suit a EuroLeague contract potentially as well, and he could fit
Yep.
into one of those teams there. Obviously, with the COVID situation, and obviously when you're playing in those areas, there's sometimes you're not getting your pay on time. There's all sort of other factors coming in there. So,
and that could even make that NBL sort of thing. He might, it might be less money to come back here, but sort of to be, able to play in front of friends and family, get a guaranteed paycheck coming in, and then maybe, knowing that those eyes that are on the NBL now, he could sort of come over here and try and have a really good season, and maybe, potentially try and get back next year. I mean, look, it could be something that people are a little bit scared by his injury history there. So if he can sort of go and, show that he can sort of have a full season and sort of be healthy, that really might help his chances, right?
Well, he doesn't have to wait till next year. If he plays the NBL season, much like Andrew Berger did with the Kings a few years ago and got that opportunity late in the season with the Golden State Warriors, a team might pay attention to that. And as you said, a team making a playoff run, wanting a veteran presence, could sign him towards the end of the season after proving himself in the NBL, right?
That's right, yeah. Well, look, we're obviously sort of, we're paying close attention to see what happens. I haven't sort of had an update for a couple of days now, so he's obviously sort of weighing up his options and everything.
Yeah.
But no, we'll certainly wish Dante all the best, and we'll sort of keep, the viewers and the watchers up to date with what's happening there. Look, there is another Aussie in the NBA we need to talk about. I'm a little bit over him, to be honest, Woods, but look, it's obviously pretty sort of topical at the moment, and that's, of course, Ben Simmons, right? Yeah. How are you feeling about Ben Simmons and what's sort of gone on this week with him in Philadelphia?
I think a day goes by when we don't hear something new about Ben, right? I just wanted to say as well today, he said a few things about, mental health issues and the fact that, he's got a bad back, apparently got a bad back. And, I don't think it's easy for people to use that as an excuse these days. And people like yourself and me, mental health is very important to us, and we understand that it's a sensitive topic. So if people are just throwing out that as an excuse, Liz Cambridge said it recently, Ben Simmons is saying it. Fair enough if he is suffering from mental health issues. Good. I hope I hope all the best for him. But if he's just throwing that as an excuse, it's not something that I'd look too favorably upon.
No,
right?
I agree. And look, it just feels like just childish behaviour, to be honest, with the way he's come to camp this week. I mean, you saw the footage. He had some shorts on with his phone in the pockets there. The next day, basically, Doc Rivers asked him to join in a defensive drill, and he just flat out said no. I mean, for someone like Doc Rivers, Woods, he's been around the NBA since the early '80s now, and he's sort of dealt with all sorts of players in his coaching and playing career. I mean, it must be so frustrating for someone like him to sort of see someone with all this talent that's acting this way, right?
Yeah, you have to show a little bit of respect for your employer. I know there's a lot of stuff that's going on, but when you're getting paid such big money, it's your job. You have to turn up to work. It's not always going to be a comfortable environment to work in.
Yeah.
We've had experiences in the past where going to work wasn't the most fun thing ever, but that's what we're paid to do. And as a professional,
you don't always get on well with everyone that you work with, right? I mean, I think everyone can say that with you, whatever sort of occupation you're doing there, you sort of have those same comments.
In all walks of life, Robbie, not just if you're a professional basketball player getting paid millions and millions of dollars a year. It's the attitude needs to change, and what this has done is actually dropped his draft stock, not his draft stock, his value, as a player,
I mean, me personally, I'd love to see him get back out on the court and just show what he's made of there. I mean, he's had some real good seasons in the NBA. I think it's probably kind of been lost a little bit as well with how bad he was in that last playoff series. The guy is a two-time All-Star, and he's one of the best defensive players in the NBA. So I know we do focus on the flaws in his game, and look, they are obviously big ones there. The guy needs to improve his shot. There's no doubt about that. But obviously he can sort of still offer and bring a lot to the table for sort of any team there. But no, you're right, Woods, in terms of his stock there. I mean, you're not going to get a like-for-like trade if you were to trade him now. I mean, you're going to be getting 50 cents on the dollar, and I don't think Daryl Morey is a sort of GM that's going to want to sort of do that. So I wouldn't be surprised if there is a little bit of hardball. Of course, saying that now he may get traded tomorrow, right, Woods? But I wouldn't be surprised if they play a little bit of hardball with him and eventually sort of get him to get back on the court and try and sort of see if he can lift the stock there.
It's as you said, it's a combination of things, right? It's not just what you can do on the floor; it's your attitude. How are you going to fit into a culture for a team? And what Ben Simmons is doing right now is not helping him. And you think of a guy like Nick Kyrgios, right, the tennis player, right? Everyone in Australia loved to hate him, but then all of a sudden, he won us over, right? And people are starting to like Nick Kyrgios now, right? And Ben Simmons could do that himself and be someone who the Australian public
the other thing as well, Woods,
yeah.
he's such a role model in Australia. I mean, literally, you can't go anywhere without seeing some sort of kid or someone wearing a Ben Simmons jersey, a Ben Simmons, T-shirt jersey, something like that. So, look, he's obviously got a lot of people that look up to him here. And look, I don't feel he's setting a very great example.
No,
and even sort of for some of the younger guys on the team, you've got guys like Tyrese Maxey, who's in their second season now, and you've got sort of someone coming in and disrupting the team and sort of being that sort of influence. It is a little bit hard to stomach. So, look, I felt like we did have to mention it. I know we've spoken a little bit offline, and disappointed, annoyed. There's probably a few words that would sort of, we could describe sort of how we're feeling about Ben Simmons at the moment. But yeah, that's sort of the update at the moment. And as we said, things can sort of change pretty sort of quickly at the moment, I guess. I think you sort of were saying as well, Woods, there have been a couple of players on the Philly team that, sort of have supported Ben as well, even lately.
Well, you mentioned Doc Rivers, right? What about veteran Danny Green, who's like a father figure for that team, who's been around the blocks, who's really come out in support of him and said, look, we'd love to have him on the team. He's a good friend for Ken Korkmaz.
Yeah.
Matisse Tybals also come out and said we'd welcome him back. So, he's being very selfish when he's acting like this. And as an Australian, and as us being Australians, as you said, it's not putting us in a very good light when he's acting like this, right? So he's not winning many fans here at home in Australia or overseas, either in the US. So it's a sad state of affairs where it's at right now. And I just really hope that him and the team can move forward and come to a resolution sooner rather than later.
Absolutely. And look, he's probably sort of, along with Dante, it's a bit of a watch this space there, but we'll certainly sort of, keep you guys posted. And, if there's any sort of update next week, be it good or bad, we'll certainly let you guys know. I guess probably the last thing I wanted to touch on in terms of the Aussies and the NBA, Woods, obviously the training camp rosters were sort of decided and the season started now. There's probably less Aussies on starting day lineups than we've seen for a while, right? I believe there were 7 Aussies this year on the rosters. What would sort of be the reason for that, Woods? I know there's a few missing. Who's sort of missing from last year?
Well, Delhi's coming to the end of his career in the NBA. He's moved to the NBL. Thornmaker, as much of a good prospect that he was, Kevin Garnett said he's going to be an MVP one day.
He was a high draft pick, wasn't he?
Right.
Yeah.
And, a guy like Jonah Bolden who's in cryptocurrency now. Yeah. There's guys who've just...
And don't forget as well, Big Bainesy as well. I mean, he would have definitely got a role this year. I believe he's sitting out this year with that neck injury that he sustained at the Olympics in Japan.
Yeah.
So, and look, fingers crossed for Bainesy. I think we'd all love to see him get back in there. I mean, he didn't have a great year with the Raptors last year, but the year before he was really good. He sort of developed that 3-point shot and everything. So hopefully that's not the end of sort of things for Bainesy.
When it's a neck injury, you got to be careful. You remember a guy like Emeka Okafor who had a very similar injury and he could never really come back from that, right? Yeah. And at 35, 36, it may be sad to say, but it could be the end for Bainesy. I hope it's not.
Yeah.
But it's hard to come back at that age from serious injuries like that. So let's watch that space a little bit. We all wish him the best. I know he's going through a hard time at the moment. So
I thought maybe just very quickly, Woods, we could just maybe just speak a little bit maybe about 2 of the sort of Aussies just in their first games now. So look, obviously Paddy Mills played on the first day and had an amazing effort, even though it was in a losing effort. And also young Josh Giddey played his first game yesterday against, one of his idols in Joe Ingles and the Jazz there. How did you sort of feel like both of those guys went in those first games?
Well, Paddy Mills, he fitted right in seamlessly into that Brooklyn team, right? 7 threes.
Amazing. 7 of 7 as well, right?
Yeah, and Steve Nash. We spoke about Steve Nash. He came out in the press conference going, this guy is just such a great guy to have around the locker room.
Yeah.
And I think that match is great. As you mentioned in the episode last week about Steve Nash and Paddy Mills, I reckon they'd get along off the court as well. So, and in terms of Josh Giddey, 10 rebounds. I think Andre Robertson previously had 8 or 9.
It was a record, OKC. Wasn't it, for OKC for most rebounds in a debut, which for your point guards, a pretty good effort, eh?
Yeah. Initially, the game was a bit fast for him, I thought, right? And it took him a while to get accustomed to it, but he's got such a great knack for the ball, right? At 6'7" or whatever he is, rebounding from that guard position.
6'7", mate. I think he's closer to 6'9". So who knows? He might still be growing. He's only 19. So, and look, I think his shot will come. I mean, we've seen his shot can be a little bit streaky. He hit a few threes in the preseason. I don't think he actually took one in the first game yesterday. So that's obviously something that will come there. And we did mention obviously OKC is not really going to set the world on fire. No. So hopefully they sort of stick with him in that starting lineup. But they did some wacky things last year. That team. him with SGA and Horford sort of being sent home and other things like that. So
I'll tell you what's a sneaky good signing for them is having a guy like Derek Favors there. I almost forgot that he's on that lineup. So you see all these young guys on that team, to have that veteran there to help those guys and teach them a little bit about professional life and how to adapt to that NBA lifestyle for guys like Terrence Mann and Josh Giddey. It's going to be good for them, right?
So Favors will stay with OKC this year and go back to Utah probably again next year, right? He seems to like doing that. Yeah.
Right. All
right. Well, look, that sort of brings an end to the sort of Aussies in the NBA segment. So I thought we sort of might go into, as we know, Woods, absolutely my favourite segment, mate, a bit of Hawks talk. And probably a good time to do that. Look, great hat. We are recording on the Friday, so the Hawks did play Dallas in that first game today. Woods, did you get a chance to watch the game at all?
I watched the whole game. Really good to get off with the victory. And we spoke about Cam Reddish last week and how good did he look today.
He was very good, wasn't he? Yeah, and it was a very even effort today, wasn't it? I mean, no one, Trey was started off quiet and he sort of found his way after that. I thought John Collins was very good, actually. His defense was amazing. Had some really good block shots there. Everyone that sort of came on. Hunter was sort of decent at times. Capella had his usual good game. And even the rookies got on at the end, right?
Very end, Jalen
Johnson took about 5 threes in about a minute and made a couple of them.
Yeah, he scored within seconds of coming on the NBA floor. So it was good for him to get that opportunity at the end of the game.
Yeah.
Trey I felt he ran the team really well today.
He did.
Scoring wasn't coming to him. It took a while for him to actually score his first point, but he decided to,
a bit more effort on the defensive end today, I noticed too, which was good.
Yeah.
Like we're not expecting Trey to set the world on fire on defense, but I thought he was quite sort of decent there and using his speed to full effect there. Another thing, I guess, with the Hawks game today, Woods, we didn't have 2 important parts of our rotation playing as well. So, Big Gallo and obviously the veteran in Sweet Lou Williams. So they're 2 sort of, players that we will be counting on this year. So, again, with that depth, I mean, look, if those 2 guys were playing today, probably the rookies or, maybe Skylar Mays at the end might not have even got on. So it's going to be a pretty tough job for Nate McMillan, I think, sort of getting this rotation. But look, probably on that, I thought we might just do a bit of a quick, probably just a bit of a season outlook and preview of sort of how we think the Hawks are going to go this year. I know we did a little bit of a sort of prediction together this week. I think I had Hawks to finish 3rd in the East and you had Hawks to finish 4th. So look, we're obviously sort of pretty similar there. But what are your sort of, I guess, expectations going in there? And do you think there's a chance we could potentially finish higher than 3rd or 4th?
Look, I have us at 4th, in terms of the regular season. Potentially, we could sneak up to that 3rd spot in the East, right? And I think this year, it really depends on health with guys like Milwaukee and Brooklyn, right? Who's going to be at the top of the East.
Yep.
So it's going to be tough for us to make that playoff run this year unless we get a bit of luck our way, because obviously last year having those injuries and Milwaukee taking care of Brooklyn on one side of the bracket, and we know about the meltdown from Ben Simmons and our ability to take Philly. So it's a wait and see approach. I think 4th is about right, maybe 3rd, as you said. But we've gone through the playoffs now and had that experience of a deep run. Brought back 9 of our top scorers. I think they mentioned that on the call today.
They did mention that, which is amazing, isn't it? Yeah, 90. What did they? Van Gundy said it was like 91% of our scoring output from last year. So I mean, that's really good to sort of get everyone back there.
Yeah.
I was probably going to touch on as well. I mean, look, we probably mention every episode, and we'll probably continue to about how deep this team is. I was sort of thinking the other day, just in terms of if there's any sort of weakness or any sort of position or area that that potentially could be a worry there. I mean, look, I'll see what your thoughts are. Probably my thoughts on that one, Woods, would be maybe Clint Capella's health. He's played I think 7 seasons now. He's never played more than about 75 games a year. He does seem to miss games.
Yep.
Obviously, we know the big man Okongwu is going to be out for another, probably a couple of months at this stage. So that's probably the one concern for me. But look, again, we've got big Gheorghe Deng and stuff like that now. So we do have sort of depth to sort of fill that spot. But he was sort of that one player that came to mind. But what about you? Is there any sort of concerns or any sort of worries you have about any sort of positions or players?
I agree with you, right? Very deep team. That's why I'm surprised that they cut Okafor, because if any spot that is a little bit of a weak link, it's that center position.
Yeah.
Speaking of big men that your daughter likes, Emily, what was she talking to us about today?
Well, she asked me how the game went. I said Capella played well, and she said, "Oh, what about a Kongu?" So yeah,
Yeah.
not bad for a little 6-year-old fan there. That's like liking her Hawks players. So shout out to Emily. Yeah, so look, and I guess probably the other one we sort of did briefly speak about offline, Woods, was maybe sort of Trey Young and his leadership there. Is there anything sort of you think or you're sort of expecting from Trey this year? I mean, look, I mentioned the defense previously. That's sort of an area he's going to try and step up on. But yeah, what are you sort of expecting from Trey this year?
Well, Kenny Smith interviewed him after the game. I don't know if you saw that, right?
I actually
and he said,
didn't.
Look,
No.
well, he said, look, if there's one aspect of your game that you want to improve this year, that you're looking to build on, what is it? And Trey said, look, I'm trying to improve all aspects of my game. You know, I've worked really hard in the off season, but if there's one thing I'd like to improve, it's looking after the ball a little bit better, make better decisions, less turnovers. And I think that'll come with experience and leadership. He needs to do that. And if he takes that step, I think, as we saw today, you know, with those 14 assists, his assist to turnover ratio was very good. When the scoring wasn't coming to him, he was trying to manage the game a bit better and, you know, get opportunities for his teammates like Reddish and John Collins and whatnot. So
is there a better player at throwing alley-oops in the league than Trey Young at the moment, Woods? He's just amazing at him, isn't he? Look, because he's got that kind of floater he drives in. You don't know if he's going to go floater or he's going to throw it up. And you've got some athletes that can throw it down on the team, I guess.
Well, they also said on the call today, 102 assists to dunks, and by far the highest assisted dunk out of anyone in the league. There's this gap between him and the next one. So, and having guys like Capella, John Collins doesn't hurt him, does it?
Yeah,
right?
Exactly right. We've seen what John Collins can do and sort of, you know, jump over a few people for dunks and everything like that. So, yeah, look, as I said, it was great to have that first game back. I believe that the next game might be on Sunday, I think it is, for the Hawks. So, yeah, obviously we'll sort of, you know, continue to sort of provide a little bit of an update there. But, yeah, that's probably sort of where we're at in terms of the Hawks, I guess, outlook for this season, you know, probably sort of around that third or fourth mark in the East. But, look, I think there's definitely potential there that they could go higher. You know, perhaps if, you know, the Nets or the Bucks are one of those teams suffers an injury, it could open the door for the Hawks to move up maybe.
So let's just mention really quickly today, we've seen Trey Young go up against Luka Doncic. They're forever going to be, you know, linked at the hip with what happened on draft night. I took Trey Young with the first pick in my fantasy draft, which I'm pretty happy about. And you took Luka. What do you think about your pick with taking Luka?
Yeah, look, I'm okay after one day. I mean, look, it was a hard one. I sort of had to put, you know, the head over the heart there. I guess for me, in terms, if we're talking fantasy, I mean, probably just a few more things that maybe Luka can do in terms of a better field goal percentage, more rebounds, and, you know, just a few things like that. And I actually wouldn't be surprised if Luka ends up hitting just as many threes as Trey does this year as well. You know, I think it's probably a little bit overstated. Trey Young's, you know, how many threes he does take. He's, you know, everyone tried to compare him to Steph Curry, didn't they? And he's a different player. He doesn't sort of, you know, rely on that three-point shot, and obviously clearly not as good as at that shot as Curry is, but yeah. All right, well, that's sort of where we're looking at for the Hawks. So, yeah, really looking forward to that next game. So, Woods, we might go into our next part now. We've got some great audience questions again this week, didn't we?
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, exactly. Wanted to really sort of thank the guys there. And, look, just to know that we're definitely sort of reading through those. We are going to probably pick one each week. So, look, apologies if you have sent some stuff through and we haven't got to it. But, you know, don't give up. Feel free to sort of, you know, send us stuff in and we'll definitely sort of keep our eyes on that. But, look, I'll just go through our question from the viewer this week, Woods. I'll just read out his question and then we can sort of, I guess, tackle, you know, the questions that he's asked together there. So, so it's from a viewer with the name of Marcus. So shout out to Marcus there. Really appreciate the email there, mate. So Marcus asks, "Hi guys, love what you guys are doing and keep it up. My question to you is a two-part question. What are your opinions of Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, and what do you think their ceiling is? And with Kyrie being out, how do you see the landscape of the East changing, and where do you think Boston will finish? Thanks, guys. Keep up the good work. Much love, Marcus." So, look, great email there, Marcus. I'd like to, you know, obviously asked sort of a couple of little parts of the question there. So, Woods, I thought we might sort of tackle that maybe. Look, you did ask about Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. Perhaps we can tackle one of those players each and sort of give a little bit of an outlook there. Would you like to maybe take Jaylen Brown and sort of give us a bit of info on him?
Yeah, oh, definitely. And he started the season really well with that 46-point effort in that epic game versus New York double overtime yesterday, right?
Yeah, he was great.
Look, I just think with Jaylen Brown, Marcus, you know, he got his first All-Star selection last year, and he put up nearly 25 points a game on 48% field goal shooting, nearly 40% from beyond the arc. This guy's an absolute stud. You know, no one expected to be this good offensively coming out of the University of California, did they? He
seems to add something every year, doesn't he, Woods? I mean, we knew he was a good sort of lockdown defender, but I mean, the way his three-point shot has come on as well. I mean, He was hitting it from everywhere yesterday, wasn't he?
He was. And look, every year, as you said, his statistical output has got better year after year. And also to answer your question, Marcus, his ceiling is limitless. If he stays healthy, he'll be a perennial all-star in this league, wouldn't you say, Robbie?
I definitely would. Yeah, he's got all the tools, doesn't he? I mean, it's one of those things. Will Boston sort of keep both of those guys on the roster? It may be something they sort of have to think about. I guess just in terms of giving a bit of info on sort of my thoughts on Tatum there. I mean, Look, absolute, he's a star. He's not a superstar yet, but he's absolutely a star. I was amazed about what sort of shape he was in. I don't know whether you noticed that yesterday. Mate, the guy's been hitting the gym since the season finished last year.
Yeah.
Amazing shape.
Looks great. Yeah.
Look, there's probably just a couple of things with him. I'd probably like to see a little bit more consistency from him. I mean, look, we're not going to get too carried away with the first game. He was pretty ordinary in the first game. I do feel like he relies on that step back a little bit too much sometimes, and he probably needs to sort of maybe look at a few other sort of options in terms of getting off those three-point shots. Probably the big one for me in terms of Jason Tatum would be sort of just taking his defense to the next level. He's definitely a good defender, but look, he's got all the makings with his size and quickness and just basketball IQ there to be, one of the best defenders in the NBA. I mean, there's no reason he couldn't be doing out there what, someone like we mentioned before, like Ben Simmons is able to do and sort of lock up guys from potentially 1 through to 5. I think, he does sort of have the skills to do that there. So, but look, I think he's going to sort of continue. And look, I think the future personally is really bright with those two guys at the helm there. Look, I know there's obviously been a few sort of changes there. I think you're going to speak about the coach in a second, Woody, but look, I noticed in terms of the roster there's obviously quite a few changes from last year. We've brought obviously, Schroeder's coming in, who, we both sort of love the guy, obviously a former Atlanta Hawk there. And look, he's sort of playing for a contract. Obviously, he turned one down that he's probably regretting now. But they've obviously got some new players. What was your sort of take on Udoka there, and obviously sort of taking over the reins there from Brad Stevens?
Yeah, well, first of all, just on those two, quickly to answer your question on how long they're going to keep these two together. I mean, they're arguably, Tatum and Brown, one of the best duos in the league, and they're both, incredibly talented. So I think once you've got those two guys on the team, they're always going to be in that playoff hunt and whatnot. So I think it's worth keeping that young nucleus together. Yeah. But so in terms of Ime Udoka, I really like the signing, and obviously Stevens moving into the front office now. Yeah. Udoka's learned under the tutelage of Popovich in that Spurs system. And that would have done him wonders. He spent 7 years there, and then he was at the Nets last year. Mm-hmm. And he's a player's coach as well. So I think bringing him in at this time after he's garnered that experience is going to be good for that Boston team to have a fresh face.
And Woods, we've seen how many of those guys have come out of Pop's system now, and whether it's, sort of initially starting off with an assistant role with another team, and, guys like, Budenholzer and sort of other guys like that. There's a lot of sort of coaches now that have come out and made their mark. So I think that's a good call there with Udoka. What's sort of your prediction for the Celtics this year, Woods?
Well, I had him as 6th, Robbie, in the East.
Yeah. And that's probably fair enough. Look, I had him at 4th. I think you were probably a little bit higher on Miami than I was. I think you sort of might have had Miami 4th, and I think I might have had Miami 5th or 6th. But look, probably Philadelphia is probably the dark horse team there as well, aren't they? I mean, depending on what happens with them, they're going to be around that 4 to 6 spot as well. But look, Marcus, in terms of where I think they finished, mate, I'm going to say 4th, sort of getting home court advantage in the first round of the playoffs there. But in terms of sort of going much further than that, possibly not this year. I think some of those other teams that we've sort of spoken about are a little bit deeper, maybe a little bit more experienced. I think in terms of the Celtics, they need to probably work out their rotation. I was looking at that team yesterday, and I think there's probably a few sort of pieces of the puzzle that they need to try and work out where they're going to fit there. So that's probably my thought there. So, but no, look, really good question again, Marcus. Really appreciate it. Hopefully, we're sort of giving you a little bit of insight there with the answers, and definitely to everyone sort of keep the emails and sort of the good questions coming through. We sort of look forward to sort of getting those each week, don't we, Woods, and sort of reading through and sort of picking one.
Yeah, look, and also just to mention something about Kyrie being out, we saw Marcus, that Patty Mills we mentioned earlier just fitted seamlessly into that system. Actually, I had Miami at 3rd, Robbie, and I had Atlanta
that's
at
right,
4th.
You're right, yeah.
So I think that with Kyrie being out, it doesn't change much. I still see with or without Kyrie that Brooklyn's going to be right there at the top. Yeah. And I think that it doesn't change that much. One thing also worth mentioning on that question is the Al Horford signing, coming back to Boston, another Atlanta Hawks alumni along with Dennis Schroeder. Having him back in that locker room is going to help that Celtics team, I think, as well.
And that could be more sort of a locker room presence rather than an actual presence on the court. I mean, look, I think he's still got a little bit to offer, and he seems to fit in that, that Celtics sort of offense a little bit better than he has in his last 2 stops there. But yeah, definitely a good sort of.
I love presence. Time Lord, man. I love Time Lord.
Yeah. Is he going to be healthy? Players. Is he going to be healthy? That's the big thing, right? I mean, he put up some great numbers yesterday, didn't he? But
he did. What 5 blocks yesterday?
Yeah, he fills up that stat sheet, doesn't he? He really does.
Fantasy stud. Just a quick sneaky good signing there, Marcus. I'll also say is Josh Richardson. Since Miami, he hasn't really had a good fit, but the guy's a two-way player, and I still think he's got something to offer. So sneaky good signing there for the. I think he came through a trade, didn't he, Robbie? Josh Richardson. There.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think he sort of could fit in well. And I must have been a little bit behind the times. I hadn't realised that Taco Fall had left the Celtics Woods. I was looking through the Cavs box score yesterday and saw he was there. So I always sort of enjoyed seeing Big Taco come on at the end of the Celtics games. But yeah, look, I think you're probably right about Richardson there. He didn't quite work out in Philadelphia and Dallas, but I think he'll probably be hungry to sort of, get his sort of reputation back again. And, as you said, he is sort of a good sort of two-way player. So, all right, well, perfect. That's sort of wraps up that question there. Again, thank you to Marcus. Look, what we're going to go on to now, Woods, we are going to sort of do our normal 2 NBL team previews. So we've got basically 4 more teams to go. So we're going to cover 2 teams this week. We're going to cover the 2 Melbourne teams next week to finish that off. So look, the teams we've obviously chosen this week, Adelaide, hence you wearing the Mark Davis jersey, and I'm sort of going to be covering the Illawarra Hawks. So, do you want to maybe take us away with the preview of the 36ers there, man?
Yeah, absolutely, Robbie. You can see I've just put up the 36ers roster and depth chart for the year. And for those who can't see it, I'll just quickly go through it with you. We've got head coach CJ Bruton taking over from Connor Henry, and they haven't brought back many players, just Isaac Humphries, Daniel Johnson, and Sunday Dech. That's it. Just looking at the depth chart at point guard, you've got Mitch McCarron, which is a sneaky good signing. Tad Diffelmeyer Jr. coming over from Cairns. At shooting guard, you got the import Dusty Hannes, Mojave King with a change of scenery at shooting guard, and you got Aldrich, the DP that was just signed. Todd Withers, an import at small forward. The Sunday driver, Sunday Dech at small forward as well. Daniel Johnson at power forward with Emmanuel Manny Malou, who I'll just touch on a bit later. And then you got Isaac Humphries and Kai Soto, who's a special restricted player from the Philippines at the center position. So that's what the team looks like this year. And I guess
in terms of those returning players, Woods, I mean, obviously the Tasmania is a brand new team, but that's probably, of all the teams we've gone through so far, it's probably had the most change, right? So you've got a new coach and literally 9 new players on the team.
Yeah, I think the Connor Henry era is over, and they wanted to start afresh with a new coach. And the way Connor Henry was treated, I'm not a big fan of him coming over here and being told he was going to be the coach for 3 years and then at the final hour getting the sack. But that's another story. I just think that they wanted to start fresh and, bring in a new nucleus of players to build on. So I'm not sure about this roster and how well they'll do. They'll go as far as Isaac Humphries goes. Last year, when he was fit, he was arguably going to be the MVP and Defensive Player of the Year early in the season. And then when he went down, the team really struggled to keep up with the other teams in the league. So I think a big part of their success will revolve around Isaac Humphries' health, right?
I was actually thinking the same. I looked at the roster and look, there's some good names there, isn't there? But I feel like I don't really have a good read on those. I've sort of, been pretty sort of bullish on some of the teams. Look, there's no doubt there's some talent there. Look, I know you sort of touched on Manny Malou earlier in the preview. Woods, what can you tell the viewers about him?
Yeah, look, Manny Malou, he's had a hard road to this opportunity. He's born in Kenya to a Sudanese father, Ethiopian mother, and he moved with his parents and 2 siblings to Australia, to Melbourne in 1996. And look, he was scouted heavily by Fred Hoiberg and really wanted the opportunity to join the Iowa program. But for a number of reasons out of his control, he never got that opportunity. He's had so many injuries. He had a summer league opportunity, which he couldn't fulfill because of those injuries. And then he's been all over the world, played in places like Iran, the Maldives, Thailand even. And he finally came back to Australia, and he's got this opportunity on the back of his performance in the NBL 1 for the Mackay Meteor. So this is a great
pretty
story.
Impressive mixtape too. I was having a look at that. The guy's a good rim protector and everything like that. So yeah, definitely a journeyman for sure, right?
Yeah, at 27 for him to get this first NBL opportunity is terrific, and a versatile foreman that can stretch the floor and block shots. They're gold. We talked about Duop Reed last week, right? So I think watch out for this guy. I think he's going to turn a few heads this season. A guy like DJ, he was supposed to move to that 6-man role this year, but just looking at this roster, I don't think they have an able replacement for him as yet. So he's probably going to start.
Yep.
They do have one import slot open, so it's possible they get an import 4 before the season starts. Mojave King, what do you think, Robbie? A change of scenery for him?
Look, I think probably he was a little bit in Mike Kelly's doghouse last year in Cairns. Look, there's no doubt the guy's got some amazing athleticism. I think I'd like to see a little bit more from him. I think probably the opportunities that he's got, maybe he hasn't sort of grabbed as well as maybe people were thinking. But look, again, I think even playing under a coach like CJ Bruton, I think could be a really sort of important sort of thing for Mo King. And look, I'd love to sort of see him sort of show that ability there, because I mean, there was definitely talk that he could sort of potentially be an NBA player a couple of years ago. And look, I think that talk's probably dropped down a little bit now, but there's nothing to say if he sort of has a really good season there. The other one I was just going to ask you about, Woods. I know we've got a lot of sort of fellow viewers that sort of, watch the show and listen to the podcast. What can you tell us about Big Kai Soto there? Because he's definitely quite a big name to come to the league, right?
Yeah, and look, you've got a huge Filipino community that love basketball in this country, so having Kai Soto here is terrific. And CJ Bruton really tried to get him at Brisbane, but no one sort of listened to him. So CJ Bruton's finally got his wish and he gets to coach Kai Soto. He's got a bit to develop on the defensive end. He struggles a little bit, and I guess having this opportunity, maybe he's going to get some looks from NBA teams if he can prove himself here. He comes from a high pedigree. His father's also a basketball player. Yeah, I guess 7'2", big guy. Let's see how he goes. I'm curious to see how he can contribute. The comparisons have been made between him and Alex Ajinka. So, if he can be that kind of player, he could have a role.
It's a pretty random comparison there, Woods, but I'll take it. I think that probably will put the NBL on the map a little bit more, won't it? I think obviously a lot of those 36ers games will be shown in Asia and the Philippines and everything else like that. So, yeah, all right. Well, look, probably the only other thing I was going to touch about, unless you had anything else to add, Woods, was just basically just with the fantasy stud and sleeper with the 36ers.
Before I just get to that, I'll just touch on the imports really quickly.
Sure.
So Dusty Hannes, he's already going to come into this league as possibly the best shooter from outside. And if you want to draw comparisons, previous sharpshooter for the Adelaide 36ers and the West Sydney Razorbacks, Troy DeVries, you remember him?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Well, Dusty Hannes is very similar to Troy, and I think back then the 3-point shot in the early 2000s wasn't as important as it is now, and I think he can make. I think I read somewhere he hit 100 in a row recently. Wow. Dusty Hannes did. So this guy can really shoot the lights out. He's also really good friends with Bobby Portis, so that's nice. I heard an interview with him on the Oz Hoopers podcast recently. So he seems like a really nice guy, and he'll fit into the system well, and the Australian community are going to like him. And the other guy, Todd Withers, this guy, he went to a Division II school. He averaged about 8 and 4 in the G League. So, look, I'm not really sure. He doesn't do anything that well from what I've seen. I've read his scouting report. Hey, it would not surprise me he's the first import to be cut. We always have that conversation. Who's the first import that's going to be cut, right?
And Adelaide is a team that sort of changes their imports a bit. We saw a little bit of that over the last couple of seasons. So, yeah.
Donald Sloan last year, right? So he was the first import cut. So, yeah. Let's see. I mean, maybe he'll prove me wrong, but yeah. And look, sorry, just going back to your fantasy stud and sleeper. Look, it's hard to go past Isaac Humphries as your stud. The guy gets blocks.
Sure.
He can get you rebounds, score you points, and if he stays healthy, he's a good guy to have on your team as a center, right? He won't be cheap, but at the same point, his return on investment will be good if you want to invest in him and you're feeling confident about his health. A sleeper for me is Tad Diffelmeyer Jr. And, he really came out of nowhere last year. Also from high pedigree, his father obviously being an NBL player as well. But I think that he's got this opportunity to be the backup point guard here on this team behind money-making Mitch McCarron. And, yeah, I think Tad Diffelmeyer is the sleeper for me. And just quickly, money-making Mitch, nice signing, right, Rob?
Absolutely, yeah. He'll look, he's probably going to be throwing the keys for that team and probably be expected to put up, quite big numbers with them. So, yeah, look, I think we're probably both on the same page with the 36ers, right, Woods? It's some good pieces there. There's some good names, but, yeah, I'd be probably pretty surprised if they did make the 4, to be honest, at this stage. But look, we'll see how they go. And like you said, there's potentially another sort of import spot open there, so they could, they could sign someone good with that import spot, and then they could potentially push them up into a top 4 contender. So, all right, no, I really appreciate you sort of going through the 36ers for us, mate. So, look, I'm going to go through the Illawarra Hawks with my preview today. So, Look, I guess with the Hawks, obviously Brian Gheorghe was the coach last year, and he basically led them from the wooden spoon to third place in the season. So I think that just speaks what just an amazing coach that Gheorghe is. So look, they were very good last year. They probably were, a chance if they could have made it to that grand final that they could have brought it home. I think they did have a few late season injuries and potentially a few players have sort of dropped in form. Look, I'll just briefly sort of go through the sort of the new players I've got on the team. They're a little bit the opposite to Adelaide there, Woods. Pretty much, I think nearly all of their players have come back except for 4. So, look, I won't go too much on the guys that are returning, but in terms of the 4 new guys, it's essentially 2 imports and then 2 big Aussies there. So, with the 2 big Aussies, you've got Gheorghe, who we did briefly speak about last week, coming off the bronze medal campaign in Japan for Australia. We've also got big Harry Froling joining the team, joining his brother there in Sam. So I think that's going to be a sort of big sort of duo there. I mean, talk about, 2 big guys that sort of like to sort of bump and sort of use their sort of throw their weight around and everything like that. So, look, in terms of the depth chart for the people that sort of, can't see the slide that's up at the moment, look, obviously, the imports that they've got, Antonius Cleveland and Xavier Rathan-Mays, who they just signed last week. So, look, I'm probably expecting Cleveland to be in the starting 5 along with Tyler Harvey, Justinian Jessup, who's the returning next star, that basically Golden State hold his rights. I think it's the big guys that I really like this team. So, in terms of the big guys, to have both the Froling brothers and to have Reith and the veteran in AJ Ogilvie, I mean, that's impressive, right, Woods?
Yeah, definitely. I like that front line a lot.
Yeah.
I think the brothers playing together, that's sneakily going to be good for both of them, I think. Right?
It will, yeah. And look, I guess in terms of the 2 new imports, that we'll just sort of go into them. Quite similar players. They're both sort of similar heights. Sort of 2 guard, and you can potentially play a little bit of 3. They're both sort of somewhat veterans now. They're both in their late 20s. They've sort of had various stops. I think probably. Cleveland's probably the one that's had a little bit sort of more time in the NBA. Rathan-Mays is a Canadian, so he's come through the sort of Canadian system there. He was basically in the summer league and looking pretty good there. And we should also mention that he actually came in as a late replacement for Travis Trice, who was the original import on the roster, but they basically couldn't sort of come to an agreement with obviously COVID vaccinations with Trice there, so they did have to sort of part ways with him there. So I guess firstly, look, I like this team, Woods.
Yep.
I like the depth. Look, I've gone, 5 minutes and talking about these guys and haven't even sort of talked about their best player. But Tyler Harvey, look, he is just a must-watch player, isn't he? I mean, I suggest for anyone that hasn't seen, Illawarra much to check him out and to watch this guy. He's an amazing player. He's a left-hander. He's got an amazing stroke. If he gets hot, he just sort of keeps shooting him further and further out. Very impressive player. And I think that was a big sort of guy, a big signing to sort of bring him back in the team. So
for 3 years as well, Robbie, he's got the greatest floater game in the NBL.
That's right.
And I mean, he's getting slept on as an MVP candidate this year, isn't he?
He is, yeah. I mean, I think he might have even been 4th last year. And look, I think obviously them having a deep team could take a little bit away from him. But look, I think he'd absolutely be in that MVP conversation there. So we'll certainly be, expecting some big things from him there. And yeah, look, I guess in terms of that sort of outlook there, I think it's good that they've sort of got a lot of those returning players coming back. Obviously, sort of, Gheorghe's got a very good sort of system there and everything.
So I guess, right, as well, we talked about Dave Thomas being the only Canadian. Well, with Rathan-Mays now, as well as Mikal McIntosh, you got 2 Canadians in the league this year. So that's awesome.
Exactly.
You're getting guys from other parts of the world to take up import spots in this league. It just talks about the globalization of the NBL a little bit more. It illustrates the globalization of the NBL a little bit.
It absolutely does. And look, I think, the NBL, when it comes with imports now, they're not just looking at American players. I mean, we can see, there's Canadians, there's French players, there's sort of a real sort of good mix in there. So, look, probably the only other one from the Hawks, from Illawarra Hawks, I wanted to touch on there, Woods. Bit of a bad luck story, right?
Dan Greta, right?
Dan Greta, yeah. So, look, for those that don't know, he suffered an ACL rupture in the last couple of months. It's actually the same knee that he did in March 2020. So, he's done that same ACL rupture twice within a year and a half. So it's terrible luck, isn't it? I know he's very highly respected, with Illawarra there. So he'll certainly be out all of this season there. So look, I guess we'll obviously, be sort of wishing him success in his recovery there, and hopefully he does come back pretty strong as well. So
nothing but the best for him. Unlucky, he's a young kid, and we wish him nothing but the best. Just before we finish up as well, you want to sort of go through your fantasy stud and sleeper as well on this team? There's quite a few options here, I'd say.
Yeah, there is, isn't there? I mean, look, the studs are a no-brainer for me and Tyler Harvey. I mean, I think probably we both had him in our fantasy teams for quite a lot of the season, pretty much last year. Yeah, I mean, he's a really entertaining player, as we said. So that's probably a no-brainer there. Look, I actually did have to think quite hard about the sleeper there in terms of sort of opportunity, but I think Harry Froling is probably a good one there. He's going to come in there. He's probably not going to have as much attention as guys like Reith and Sam Froling and Ogilvie will have there, so he could sort of sneak under the radar a little bit for the big guy there. So, yeah, Harry Froling would be my tip there. Look, before I finish off the Hawks, I just wanted to give a little bit of a shout-out to one of our loyal viewers and listeners in Damien Brutus Clark. I just wanted to shout out for Damien there. He's actually a huge Illawarra fan, but I probably should point out, Woods, he's only a huge fan when they win. So I just thought I'd throw that out there. But a shout out to Dame. Look, I'd love to actually come down and see a game with you at the Sandpit this year, mate. So we might even try and tee that up. What do you reckon, Woods? We might go down and see an Illawarra game this year. What do you think?
Hell, we've been talking about that for years. Isn't he a big Bill Woods fan as well?
He is a big Bill Woods fan. I mean, look, who isn't? I mean, we've got to love Bill Woods and Steve Carfino, taking it back a little bit to the days of the NBL coverage. But, yeah, I just thought I'd throw a little bit of a shout-out to Dame there. I know he's a very loyal viewer and watcher there. So,
thanks, Dame.
There.
Appreciate it, man.
That's right. So, all right. Well, look, that's sort of I can't believe how quick this episode's gone, Woods. It's sort of starting to feel like we could sort of talk for about 2 hours each week, but we won't do that to you guys out there. Look, I guess just in terms of sort of just a little bit of housekeeping from last week, I happened to make an error in about the first minute of the podcast, which was really good. So apologies to Michael Fraser, who was the Wildcats import they signed last week. I did refer to him as Tim Fraser. Now, Woods, give me a break with that. They both were in the NBA at exactly the same time, I think in 2018. So I got the names wrong. There's no relation with those guys, but apologies about that. How do you reckon you went today, Woods? Any mistakes, mate?
Look, we'll have to go back and listen. I know I did say Ben Simmons draft stock, and then I corrected myself saying no, he's stock in general.
Look, right? I should probably let everyone know as well. I believe you may have had a reasonably big night last night with Joseph from the NBL Pocket podcast. So I forget what that message you sent me this morning, but something was, I feel like absolute crap, Rob, or something like that. So I'm glad you've managed to snap out of that, and I can see you've got a cold drink in front of you there just to sort of start off the night. So
hair of the dog, man, hair of the dog. So once I had that sip of that beer, I feel a hell of a lot better, and I think we did a really good job on the episode today, and giving that NBA focus and attention a little bit more this week.
That's it. And look, we probably will continue with that focus, won't we? I mean, it makes sense. The NBA is sort of on, and look, and feel free if any sort of feedback, if there's anything you'd like us to talk about, keep up those sort of viewer questions and everything else like that. In terms of that email address, Woods, where can everyone find our email address to send us questions there?
Yeah, so once again, thanks for sending in all your questions, guys. So it's going to be throwbackhoopspodcast@gmail.com. You'll be able to see it on your screen at the end of this video as well for those who are watching the video. And in terms of Twitter, our following's got really good there. We post all our jerseys and a lot of different stuff nowadays. We're very active on our Twitter feed. Where can the viewers follow us on Twitter, Robbie?
Definitely, yep. So @Throwbacks Hoops is the Twitter handle. Also, just you mentioned the jerseys, just very briefly. We've had a lot of people calling out, "Oh, do you have this jersey? Do you have that jersey?" So if you've got any suggestions, anyone you'd like to see us rocking, send it out because, as I said, there's a pretty good chance we'll have it in our collection. Actually, a very good chance, I would have thought. So, so look, in terms of obviously, just wanted to sort of thank everyone again. Continue to sort of like and subscribe and watch the video channel through YouTube. In terms of the podcast, look, it's the same thing we've sort of said. The podcast is available on all sort of podcast channels now. So iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, Podbay, all those sort of places like that. You can find us there. And look, obviously, we'll be back with episode 5 next week. Now, you got any parting words for us today, Woods?
We'll have a special guest next week, so look out for that. Look, I've really enjoyed today's episode, and bring on the weekend. Lockdown's done, and just out last night with Joseph, as you said, and just to see everyone out in restaurants and enjoying their time outside after it's been a tough little period is just really heartwarming. So get out, support the hospitality community, everyone, if you can this weekend, and grab a bite to eat.
But don't forget, if you are home, load up the League Pass, right, and watch as many NBA games as you can.
Hell yeah.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for joining us. Look forward to doing it again next week. One love from Woods and I, and we'll see you guys soon.
Definitely, yes.
Peace out, guys.
Peace.